My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 25 years old, living in Eagle County, Colorado. On most days, I put on my work boots before the sun rises and head out as a journeyman electrician. I finished trade school not long ago, and I take pride in the kind of work where your hands end the day dirty, but your heart feels clean. I'm also a husband, married for almost 3 years, and in just a few short weeks, I'll be holding my first child, a little girl in my arms. My wife and I have been painting the nursery together, folding tiny clothes that seem too small to be real, and daydreaming about the sound of her first cry. If you looked at me today, you'd see a man with a beard and calloused hands, a man who sings hymns on Sunday mornings and wires circuits on Monday. To most, I might look ordinary, but I know better. My life is anything but ordinary, and deep down, I know why. I can't escape the story that followed me since childhood. People still remember me not as Daniel Harper, the electrician, but as the boy who died and saw heaven. Some don't believe it, others won't let me forget it. I've been called everything: miracle child, fraud, chosen, liar. Strangers still ask about it, as if my childhood near-death experience is more real to them than the life I live now. And the truth is, I understand why. Because even I, after 2 decades, still wrestle with it. The story began when I was 3 years old, nearly 4. My appendix burst, but the doctors didn't catch it in time. For 5 long days, poison spread through my body. By the time they rushed me into emergency surgery, my small frame was weak and frail. My parents were told to prepare for the worst. That was the night my life changed forever. It started with a stomach ache. I remember curling up on the couch, clutching my side, telling my parents that it hurt. They thought it might have been the flu or something minor. The doctors agreed. They sent me home with instructions to rest. But the pain didn't go away. Instead, it grew sharper, deeper, almost unbearable. For 5 long days, the poison of a ruptured appendix spread through my little body while no one realized what was happening. By the time the truth came out, I was weak, pale, and fading. My parents rushed me to the hospital, and the doctors finally understood the gravity of what had gone wrong. My appendix had burst days earlier. An infection had already taken hold. They told my parents surgery was the only option, but even then, there were no guarantees. I didn't know it at the time, but those doctors were not expecting me to survive. The lights above me blurred as they wheeled me into the operating room. I remember the cold of the mask pressed against my face, the taste of metal and medicine in the back of my throat. Then, suddenly, silence. And then, something I cannot fully explain. It felt like I was rising, floating, almost like a feather caught in a breeze. One moment, I was lying on a table surrounded by frantic doctors. The next, I was looking down at them from above. I could see their hands moving quickly, instruments flashing under the harsh light. Their voices were urgent, their movements hurried. I should have been terrified, but a strange calm settled over me. I drifted, weightless, through the walls and into another room. There was my mother, holding a phone, her voice trembling as she prayed and called relatives. I remember the tears streaking her face. I remember the desperation in her voice, pleading for God to save me. Then I was somewhere else. My father was on his knees, fists clenched, shouting at God with every ounce of strength he had left. His words were raw, loud, desperate, almost angry, as if he was wrestling heaven itself. God, please don't take my boy. Please don't let him die. I had never seen him like that. I had never heard that kind of prayer before. At that moment, confusion swept over me. I didn't understand what was happening. Why was I looking at my parents from outside myself? Why wasn't I in my body anymore? Fear began to creep in, a coldness I can still feel when I think about it. My small mind couldn't process death. All I knew was that something was terribly wrong, and I was alone. And then everything changed. The fear was swallowed up in light, bright, warm, but not blinding. A presence wrapped around me, steady and gentle. I looked, and there he was, Jesus. I was no longer hovering above the hospital. I was sitting in his lap, cradled like the child I was. His eyes, a mixture of colors I could never describe properly, looked into mine. His face carried kindness beyond anything I had known. The wounds in his hands caught my attention, but I didn't understand them yet. All I knew was that I felt safe, seen, and loved in a way words could never capture. I remember trembling in his arms, my small body shaking with fear. But he smiled, and his voice, steady, rich, full of peace, calmed me instantly. I didn't even need words. Just the sound of him was enough to tell me I wasn't lost, I wasn't forgotten. Then he spoke to the angels. They began to sing. Their voices weren't like any choir on earth. They weren't bound by sound or rhythm the way we are. It was music that filled everything, seeping into every part of me, quieting my fear until it was gone. I sat there, still a child, but somehow knowing this was no dream, this was no illusion. I was in a place more real than anything I had ever known. From his lap, I could still sense what was happening below in the hospital. My parents were still praying. The doctors were still fighting for my life, but I was not there anymore. I was here, with him. Jesus still held my hand as we walked forward. His touch was steady, grounding, and warm. Beside him, I felt like nothing could harm me. I looked up and saw his robe, dazzling white with a purple sash across his chest. His hair was brown, his beard full, and his eyes, those eyes, were the color of both the ocean and the forest, blue and green woven together. But it wasn't just his appearance that struck me, it was his presence. Being near him was like standing in the very heart of love. We walked toward a golden road that sparkled as though each stone was made of light itself. In the distance, I saw gates, tall, shining, beautiful. They weren't ordinary gates. They seemed alive, almost welcoming. As we drew closer, something unexpected happened. A little girl came running toward me, arms wide, laughter bursting from her face. She hugged me tightly before I could even react. At that age, I didn't much like hugs from strangers, especially girls, but there was something different about her. She looked like family. Her smile reminded me of my older sister back home, but her hair was brown like my mother's. I pulled back, confused, and asked, "Who are you?" She looked into my eyes and said, "I'm your sister." The words froze me. I didn't understand. I already had a sister, Cassie, older than me. But this girl wasn't her. She was someone else. Seeing my confusion, she explained in her own simple way, "I'm the baby who never got to grow up. I was lost before you were born." It was only years later that I would learn the truth. Between my sister Cassie and me, my mother had a miscarriage, a baby I had never been told about. Yet here she was, alive and full of joy, meeting me at the gates of heaven. She grabbed my hand and led me forward with excitement, showing me what lay beyond. I saw fields that stretched endlessly, filled with flowers that danced in the breeze. I saw rivers so clear that you could see straight to the bottom, waters that sparkled like liquid crystal. There were trees, tall and strong, with leaves that shone like silver and fruit that seemed to glow. And everywhere I turned, they were people. Some were dressed in robes of white, their faces radiant, their voices singing praises I couldn't understand, but somehow felt deep in my soul. I remember seeing animals, too, creatures I knew from Earth and others I had never seen before. Lions and lambs together, birds flying in colors I had no names for, horses with coats so white they gleamed. Everything here was alive, not just breathing but bursting with God's presence. The angels never left. They surrounded me, tall and majestic, their wings glistening. Some sang, their voices weaving through the air like music itself. Others stood guard, strong and unshakable, yet gentle when they looked at me. I knew, without anyone telling me, that I was safe. Jesus stayed by my side through it all. He let me explore, but he never let go of my hand for long. At one point, I noticed something that puzzled me. Everyone else in heaven was whole. No sickness, no glasses, no scars. But Jesus, he had wounds in his hands and the tops of his feet. I stared at them, curious, until finally I asked, "Why are you the only one with marks?" He knelt down so we were eye to eye. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a weight I couldn't yet understand. "Daniel," he said softly, "I keep these to remind me how much I love you." Even as a child, those words pierced my heart. I didn't fully grasp the cross or the nails, but I understood love. And the thought that Jesus bore scars in a perfect heaven just to remember his love for me, it was almost too much for my little heart to take. I didn't want to leave. Every step, every moment in heaven felt like it belonged to me. I was home in a way I had never been before. But then everything shifted again. Jesus looked at me with tenderness, and I could sense something changing. "Daniel," he said, "I'm sending you back." I shook my head. I didn't want to go. Who would choose to leave this? But he continued, "I'm answering your Father's prayer. He asked me to save you, and I am sending you back to him." In that instant, I understood. My father's cries in the hospital had reached heaven, and Jesus was answering. Not because I begged to stay, but because love reached down from earth and touched the heart of God. The angels sang again, their voices carrying me upward, back through the light, back through the veil. I felt the weight of earth rushing toward me. My chest heaved, my eyes opened, the hospital lights returned. I was back. I had seen heaven. I had walked with Jesus. I had met a sister I never knew I had. And though I was still a boy, I knew I would never be the same again.